We all know about the Reddit lamp story, that creepy story where a guy gets tackled, blacks out, and somehow lives an entire life, only to realize none of it was real. He had a family, a routine, years of memories, and then one small thing ruined it all. A lamp. Something about it felt off. And the more he looked at it, the more his whole reality started breaking apart, until he finally woke up, back to the moment he got tackled. And after that, he couldn't move on. Imagine losing an entire life that felt real. Now the question is this actually possible, or is it just a really well-written internet story? The story was first posted in January 2012 on Reddit. At the time, it was just a comment. Nothing special. No proof. No identity. Just a random user sharing an experience. But over time, it blew up because of how realistic it felt. But when you actually break it down, things don't really make sense. Let's start with the brain. In the story, the guy experiences around 10 years of life in what was probably just 20 to 30 seconds in real time. Now yeah, the human brain is powerful. It can distort time. You might have had dreams that felt long, even though they only lasted a few minutes. But there's a limit. Turning a few seconds into something that feels like years, with full consistency, emotions, relationships, and daily life, that's not something science supports. There's no evidence that the brain can simulate an entire stable life like that in such a short time. And that brings us to the next point, the consistency. The life he describes isn't chaotic. It's not random like dreams usually are. It's structured. It flows like a real timeline. There are no weird jumps, no sudden changes, no dreamlike glitches. Everything makes sense. Until the lamp. But that's actually suspicious. Real dreams are messy. They shift constantly. One moment you're somewhere. The next moment you're somewhere else, and you don't even question it. But in this story, everything feels too perfect, like it was written to be understood, not experienced. Then there's memory. If someone actually lived another life, even in their mind, the brain wouldn't be able to store all of that information clearly and then recall it after waking up. Memory doesn't work like that. Even real-life memories fade, change, or get distorted over time. So remembering years of detailed events, conversations, and emotions, after just a few seconds of unconsciousness, that's extremely unlikely. Now let's talk about proof. There is none. The story comes from a random post. No name, no verification, no follow-up, nothing. And that's important because if something like this actually happened, it would have been studied. Doctors, psychologists, someone would have looked into it. But there are no real documented cases like this. Just stories. And here's something most people miss, the ending. In the story, after he gets tackled, a police officer shows up. But earlier, he's described as being unconscious on the pavement. So how does that timeline even work? If everything happened in just a few seconds, how did events like that unfold so cleanly? It doesn't fully line up. And then there's the biggest giveaway, the storytelling itself. The whole something feels off moment, especially with the lamp, is a classic horror technique. It's used to slowly build tension. A small, harmless object becomes the trigger that breaks reality. That's not evidence of something real. That's good writing. So when you put everything together, the brain limitations, the perfect structure, the lack of proof, and the storytelling style, it starts to look less like a real experience and more like a really well-crafted creepypasta. So yeah, most likely, the story is fake. But here's the part that actually makes it creepy. Even though the story isn't real, the feeling it gives you is. Because your brain can distort reality. It can mess with time, memories, and perception. Not to the level of living another life, but enough to make you question things. So the story itself might be fake, but the idea behind it? Conclusion. This story is mostly a creepypasta and not a real story.